generation rules the nation.
Pass the Duchy by Musical Youth has shot from number 26 to the top slot.
Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. In late 1982, 5 British high school kids burst onto the world stage with one of the biggest hits of not only that year but the entire decade. Dennis Seaton on the mic, Junior Waite on the drums, his brother Patrick Waite on the bass guitar, Michael Grant on the keyboards, and his brother Kelvin Grant on the guitar. They were the Musical Youth and students at Dudderston Manor High School in Birmingham. Just looking at them, it might have been tempting for a casual observer to think of them as a novelty act because of their ages, but in reality, they were a tight, legit reggae band with talent way beyond their years, which propelled their first single to the top of the charts and turned them into overnight superstars. They were not just adored by fans in the UK, but were respected even back home in Jamaica. In addition to their delightful sound, they were always a delight to watch, with their enthusiastic performances on stage. But the group's phenomenally quick rise to success would give way to a dramatic decline in fortune and heartbreaking tragedy that saw Musical Youth fall apart and grind to a sad halt. They became victims and another statistic in the sad list of child stars exploited and torn apart by the music industry. The story of Musical Youth began in Newtown, Birmingham in 1979 when George Grant, musical enthusiast and father of Michael and Kelvin Grant, noticed that his 2 sons had a great love for music and instruments. Michael loved the keyboards and Kelvin was crazy about the guitar. So he reached out to his old friend Freddie Waite Sr. Both men had been close friends as youngsters in Jamaica before moving to England. Freddie Waite Sr. had been a member of a popular band in Jamaica called The Techniques. When he started training the Grant boys, it came to light that Freddie Waite also had 2 sons who were crazy about music. Freddie, or Junior Waite, was a keen drummer, while Patrick Waite was a lover of the bass guitar. So Freddie Waite Sr. brought the idea of getting a band together. The boys showed an incredible level of talent and were so tight that Freddie Waite Sr. began to hustle to get the band to play gigs at pubs and nightclubs. In those early days, Mr. Waite acted as the lead singer of the band, and they impressed heavily on the local scene in Birmingham. And by 1981, they recorded the singles General and Political on a local label in Birmingham called 021 Records. The songs became noticed by legendary BBC DJ John Peel, whose contribution to discovering and promoting new reggae acts deserves a video of its own. After performing on John Peel's show, the demand for the boys grew even stronger and they began to play at bigger venues. At one of their shows, an executive with MCA Records was in the audience and was blown away by their performance. He offered them a record deal but wasn't comfortable with the image of Freddie Waite Sr., a grown man, as lead singer of a group of kids. So he set the condition that they had to find a young lead singer. And after advertising for a lead vocalist, their schoolmate Dennis Seaton joined the band. And the band formally signed with MCA Records in September of 1982. The first single they recorded was a remake of a Mighty Diamond song titled Pass the Coochie, which was a song about herb. To make it radio friendly, they switched the herb references to food and renamed it Pass the Duchy. It was released the same month and literally caught fire in the charts, moving from number 99 to number 26 in a matter of days. What I personally loved about the group was how confident and assured they looked. They were just kids, but on stage, they performed like men. And even though Dennis Seaton was the lead singer, the natural leader of the group was Kelvin Grant, whose toasting on Pass the Duchy is one of the most memorable parts of the song. The band was invited to perform on the UK's most prominent music show, Top of the Pops, and their performance introduced millions of new viewers who saw the boys for the first time. Within a week, Pass the Duchy was number 1 on the UK charts in October that year, but that was just the beginning. They were the first black musical act to land the video on steady rotation on MTV. This exposure sent Pass the Duchy up to number 1 in 18 countries and sold 5 million records. Their next single, Don't Blame the Youth, came out in December and went up to number 13 on the UK charts, while their third single, Never Gonna Give You Up, went up to number 6 on the charts. Their debut album, The Youth of Today, charted in the UK, Germany, USA, and Canada. To shoot music videos for the album, they went to Jamaica and received a hero's welcome. It was where their grandparents lived, and they not only reunited with family, but found out that they had a legion of fans in the country. and they hung out with the likes of Ika Mouse, Billy Boyo, and other reggae artists who gushed over them. To all intents and purposes, their debut was a smashing success. They were absolute superstars, and from average schoolboys who were moving around unnoticed, the school authorities had to create an alternative entrance and exit for them, just to help them avoid hundreds of screaming female fans who would always wait for them at the school gates. And with fame and fortune came the inevitable pitfalls. Patrick Waite became the first casualty, and after using some substances which are not known until today, suffered a mental breakdown during one of their shows. To make matters worse, their record label did the worst thing you could do to a reggae band. They chose to water down their heavy reggae sound in favor of a more R&B pop flavor that they felt would make them more acceptable to the US markets. When it was time to record their next album, their label made them go and record it in Los Angeles, far from Birmingham, where the Youth of Today album had been recorded. Their second album was also loaded with songs written by various musicians, unlike the first, which had songs written exclusively by Freddie Waite and the boys themselves. The album, titled Different Style, was released in 1983, and despite moderate success of the singles 007 and 16, the album was a critical and commercial flop that was scoffed at by reggae fans and rejected by even the pop audiences it was designed to capture. But despite the poor results of their second album, they were still on top of the world. They performed at that year's Reggae Sunsplash and were amazed that the likes of Stephen Marley actually came to sit down and watch them rehearse. They were nominated at the 1984 Grammy Awards for Best New Artists, and though they didn't win, they were amazed that they were recognized by megastars like Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney. That was the absolute peak, but from there, it all came crashing down. Pressure from their label to replicate the success of their first album began to tear the boys apart, and they formed camps with the Waite brothers on one side, the Grant brothers on another, and Dennis Seaton on his own. Dennis quit the band in 1985, and Musical Youth fell apart. And now seen as non-viable, they were released by their record label soon after. To make matters worse, they discovered that they were all broke, and for all their success, they found out that their management and record label had mismanaged or just plain frittered away all their money. This was devastating for the boys, and it hit Patrick and Freddie Waite particularly hard, with the two brothers descending into severe drug abuse. Patrick Waite became a repeat offender and saw the inside of many police cells, but when he tried to rob a pregnant lady at knife point, he was caught and jailed for 2 years. He was severely depressed due to going from global star to penniless junkie, and passed away on the 18th of February 1993 of heart failure. Freddie Jr. suffered a nervous and mental breakdown and was in and out of institutions until his death in 2022 at the age of 55. Kelvin Grant also dabbled into drugs and became very reclusive. He kept to himself and was for a time sentenced to prison for marijuana possession. He since then moved around, trying to move far away from the memory of his Musical Youth days, and whenever his bosses or colleagues would identify him as Kelvin from Musical Youth, he would just leave the job and move on. Dennis and Michael, however, handled the implosion a lot better. Dennis Seaton put his head down and worked regular jobs before establishing himself as a successful entrepreneur. Michael, on the other hand, opened a recording studio with some partners who believed in him enough to invest, and he kept doing what he loved best. By 2002, they discovered that MCA Records had not been paying them royalties, despite their music being used in movies like The Wedding Singer and Scooby-Doo. And after a series of negotiations, they reached an agreement with the record label and got a settlement of an undisclosed sum of millions of pounds. This legal battle served to reunite Michael and Dennis, who became friends again after years of silence. They have since reformed as Musical Youth and have been consistently performing together over the years. Kelvin, however, opted out of rejoining the band and has insisted on working as a solo artist. Musical Youth's rise is one of the most amazing stories in reggae history, but on the flip side, their dramatic decline is also one of the most tragic. But I believe they remain an inspirational example of what even children could attain with enough hard work and dedication. So there you have it. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.